TecHome Builder Summit. You're here, you've arrived. We're actually really thrilled to be back here together again this year, and we're even more thrilled that you all took the time to travel here and be with us. I'm Heather Young. I'm going to be the multifamily moderator for the event with AE Ventures, and I'm excited to kick this off. Events like this take a lot of time and a lot of people to make them happen, but most importantly, they cannot happen without sponsors. And so I want to start this session by kicking it off with a word from our sponsor. I am joined here by Nick English, the CEO, and he's going to be joining us and giving a presentation to kick this off.
Thank you. As she said, I'm Nick English. I'm the CEO of Cottus North America. So you may have noticed on your lanyards, Cottus, and said, what the heck is that? So we are an electronic door lock company. We are sponsoring this session. So kind of like a YouTube video that has ads at the beginning and you cannot hit skip, that's what I am. So you're stuck with me for a few minutes. So who is Cottus? So Cottus has been in business for over 30 years. We sell locks around the world. We're new to North America. That's why you probably haven't heard of us. But we are a Chinese-based company that is number one in Asia, has 40% market share, and is just really crushing it worldwide, and has decided to come to the US and compete in the market with smart locks, connected locks, Z-Wave, you name it. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. What makes us unique and different is that we own 3 factories, and we have start to finish manufacturing. So it really makes a big difference when you own your supply chain and you are your supply chain from a quality standpoint and a pricing standpoint and all of those sort of things. So really translates through as far as when you look at Cottus and you look at the quality that we have and you look at the pricing where we are. Hundreds of R&D engineers based right in the factory, again, not trying to coordinate things overseas and doing that. So the vision of the company is to provide secure, state-of-the-art security solutions for home and businesses around the world. So that's truly what we want to do. And that's why coming into North America, it had to be the right timing, had to be the right play, and wanted to do that. So the timeline, the company was founded in 1986 as a lock component manufacturer, and then has evolved into making electronic door locks. So for the last 14 years or so, we've been dedicated to just making electronic locks. Okay, so again, been over 3 years of history making electronic door locks. So again, when you hear, hey, Cottus, they're brand new, the company's not new, it's just new to North America. So I stress that point because a lot of people get hung up on the name brand recognition of kind of our biggest competitors because they've been in the US for a long time. So Cottus has been around almost nearly as long, just doing it in other parts of the world. So again, I mentioned end-to-end manufacturing, and that really does make a difference when you can control quality and then you control your pricing. So our pricing is typically 30 to 40% less than our competitors. So we are in distribution throughout North America, so I welcome you to check that out. So what we have right now, again, I said we have a whole lineup of Z-Wave locks, but we have the products that our initial shipment that we got in May of 2023, we have keyway-less, we have keyway, we have with fingerprint, we have touchscreen, and then we're gonna have a touchscreen without a touchscreen without a keyway, touchscreen without a keyway, and a fingerprint, and then a lever. Those are actually here now. We'll have contemporary versions of those locks. So we're just continuing to expand and grow the line as we can manufacture. In the top right box, in the bottom right of that box, there is a Wi-Fi lock there that we're selling, and it's a Wi-Fi video doorbell deadbolt with two-way voice and video. So it's really, we won an award at CEDIA for a best new product. So that's a product I think is going to disrupt the market. It is not it's not Z-Wave, it is Wi-Fi, but it is a pretty interesting product. And then in the spring, we will have a mortise style, an interconnected, as well as a manual thumb turn a little bit shortly thereafter that are all in Z-Wave as well. So looking at multifamily space, looking at that, there's a really big hole in the market right now. And we have noticed that, and we actually moved up plans to bring out those commercial style locks much sooner than anticipated. So again, highest quality locks with unique features. We have exceptional support here in North America and optimum pricing. So again, kind of the newest locks on the smart lock block. So just going into a little bit more, I won't bore you with all of the details of them, but I just wanted to show you the blow-up pictures of what they look like and what we've got there. So keyway-less, both contemporary and traditional, keyway, contemporary and traditional, and then the with a fingerprint as well. And the fingerprint's really cool. We'll have one at our booth. I welcome you to come and look at it. It responds in like 0.2 seconds. And all you do is you just touch it and it opens. It's not like you have to sit there and hold it for a long time. So it's really receptive to that. So then we have without a keyway, both with and without fingerprint, the touch screen, as well as the lever lock. And then, like I said, the Wi-Fi video doorbell, that one's really cool. That one will land sometime in December. We'll have that one, so really excited about that. Some of the, I won't tell you about all the features, but two that I'll call out here that are really interesting that we have built into our locks. One is away mode. So you have a master PIN code. If you plug in the master PIN code and put the lock into away mode, you can lock out all other codes that you've given out. So our locks will accept up to 250 user codes. If it has a fingerprint, it will take up to 50 fingerprints. In this case, if you've given out 20, 30 codes and you're going out of town, out of the country, whatever it is, and you just don't want anyone to have access, you can just put it in away mode and it locks every code out except for the master code until you undo that. So kind of a cool feature because sometimes you forget about it. And the whole idea of not having a key is you give away codes, but then sometimes you've given away too many codes and you don't want people coming and going. The other one is kind of the opposite of that. It's a one-time PIN code up at the top right. So the situation with that one is you can plug in having a PIN code, and once it's used once, it disappears forever until you program something else in. So again, if you have a dog walking service or you have somebody that's dropping by your house, it's not a recurring service, it's a one-time service. Plug in a one-time code, they access your home, and then they leave. They can't ever use that code again. So it's kind of a good thing for, like I said, service provider that isn't a recurring thing. So some of the cool technologies. We are Alarm.com certified, so a lot of people ask that right away. We're working on Point Central certification. We'll have that in the next probably month or so. So important to this crowd, I think. Yeah, so we have full marketing support in North America. So if you do buy through distribution and it's something that you want to utilize, we have marketing support as far as demos, samples, collateral, mounts, stands, you name it, anything you need to help with marketing on that. So really, that's it.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Can you all give him a round of applause as he exits? He was public speaking. All right, we're going to get started with the main content, and as we do, I encourage you to be present because you'll remember more of the experience, and experience is actually one of the themes that as we were putting this content together, I really saw coming up over and over again. Quite frankly, experience is king, and you'll see that, I think, coming up in several of the sessions. So now we're going to get started. We're diving into tech, and obviously there's a demand for smarter, more tech-friendly homes. And as you all know, success starts with the planning process. Our panelists are, first of all, don't be worried. If we have to do this ad lib, I have full confidence in their ability to talk really well about this topic. And so while they're getting the slides caught up and set up, I'm actually going to let everyone who's up here on the stage with me introduce themselves, and I'll start right here.
All right, Justin Foster. I'm the Director of Community Technology Solutions at Quarterra. We are a owner-operator. We primarily new development, and we have our in-house construction team, development team, and living team. Currently operate 15,000-ish homes. And homes is a marketing term, so I'm going to continue to say that. And then everyone just think units in your head, but it's homes. And so, yeah, and we're under construction. We're probably 6,000 or so. Take it away, Demetrios.
Demetrios Barnes. Today, I'll be wearing the hat as a consultant. I run a consulting firm. We help individuals customize, purchase, implement things like Yardi, RealPage, and alike. But more notably, I'm the former co-founder of SmartRent. So big shout out to the Kadosk team over there. But spent the last 7 years building a very large smart home platform that people like Justin and people like Taylor have been beating me up about. So hopefully I can add some value to an interesting discussion because I think there's a lot of things that we can do right, but a lot of things we can do wrong if we're really not taking the time to think about how to do it right. So thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
Well said, well said. So my name's Taylor Widerkehr. This is now, I want to say, my 10th TecHome, and it's a fantastic conference, so thanks for having me. I'm the founder and CEO of Innovative NOI, Inc. We are actually a third-party validator that provides dealers and vendors with software to actually better sell and articulate their NOI value proposition to all of those in this room here. And so essentially, I come from the owner-operator side myself. I was the head of innovation at Alliance Residential Company prior to Greystar's acquisition. And then I was offered a position to head up innovation at BH Management Services as well. So over the course of the 2 years that I was in your seats, I can tell you that working hand in hand with folks like Demetrios in the early days of this technology, there's been a lot of questioning the value and really trying to understand that value. And so that is what Innovative NOI is here to do, is be that translator. And good news is, guys, I'm not selling you guys anything. So that's good news there.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves, and thank you for joining us today. So I'm going to start with just a basic question, and then from there this is a choose your own adventure session now, so we'll see where we end up. But first to start, you all have very different experiences in the industry, very different perspectives as well. So I'm going to go down the line, starting with Taylor, actually. What is, from just an overview perspective, what you believe is the most crucial aspects of developing successful tech plans?
Yeah, I think, well, first it's understanding what exactly your goals are as an organization for the next 12 months. I always say 12-month windows, good just to keep everything in context, but really, if you know where you're headed, you will have a pretty good idea where your technology will need to be to really empower you to accomplish those goals. So I'd say any tech plan that we've ever come up with, especially in the days of Alliance and BH, really was just focusing on what are we trying to achieve over the next 12 months and what technologies exist in the marketplace that can help us achieve that.
Okay, so I'm actually going to ask you to dive a little deeper because we have the slides up.
Perfect.
And I know you have, because again, it's your skill set, you have a very strategic way of approaching this, and I want you to be able to dive deeper into that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So one thing that we actually do, and while we were developing our software, was we started working with smaller owner-operator portfolios of roughly 15,000 units or less. And so as of today, we actually represent roughly 78,000 units of owner-operators in their innovation needs. We provide that as an outsourced component. But that said, we always start any conversation with any new owner-operator with the establishing what exactly are their pain points, because everybody has something to say, and it's very important that everybody gets that out. And then really, once those pain points have been established, then we layer those right on top of those goals that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Following that, of course, we want to look and make sure we understand what technologies have we already adopted as an organization to make sure that we don't adopt something else that may conflict with that. And so ultimately, once you've established and identified, we then, of course, compare our list of deployed and adopted technologies against the technologies that you guys can see on the right side of the screen, which is essentially the different priorities. And so Tier Tech 1 examples up there, you can see we kind of have basic things that every organization within a multifamily business should have: rent collection, employee payroll, basic revenue management, leasing automation, basic integrations, and access control. Those are pretty much considered in any new development and the, I'd say, underwriting days at my Alliance time as a new developer. Those were essential on every single new development. Now, the ones in orange and yellow, depending on what you guys can see there, those are essentially the ones that we considered to be nice-to-haves if we actually had the money in the budget. And so those aren't necessarily in order, but ultimately they're all centered around ensuring that our investment was being maximized. And so really to get into the last component here, which is the pursue, ultimately, having a foundational tech stack that allows you to properly lease your asset out and really provide a seamless experience for your residents, that has to be in place. So we got to start there regardless. But then after that, of course, we look at, okay, what were those goals? We've got our foundational tech stack. Now, which of the things on the tier 2 list can we layer in there to better help us achieve those goals in the same time frame? So very, very simple EICP audit, what we do with every owner-operator when they're considering technology for a new deployment.
Great, thanks for breaking that down. It always helps to have an acronym. Okay, so now I'm gonna switch perspectives. We're gonna go over to you, Demetrios. You have your own ideas and experiences to share.
Yeah, a lot of these thoughts were founded based on being an operator for a long time. So I was a VP of technology for Invitation Homes back when the housing market collapsed and institutions wanted to start buying up homes, and now they own most of them. But back then we realized, hey, we needed a different type of tech to be really powerful. Today, your operators are talking about things like centralization and maybe podding. Those are concepts all founded in the single-family market. And so we left the single-family space. We started a company called SmartRent. SmartRent today serves well over 800,000 apartment homes, not units. What Taylor said is really crucial. When you take being an operator, deploying and building your own tech, I forgot who said it, but I think it's really easy to get lost in what the latest and greatest tech is. So whether that's Thread or Matter or whatever Google or somebody wants to call it tomorrow, versus really sticking to what are we trying to solve, right? And so what you see here is what things should you be thinking about well before you actually purchase anything? Too often when I engage with companies who said, hey, I need self-guided touring. But depending who the product maker is of that self-guiding touring platform, maybe that's just software, maybe that's virtual tech, maybe that's physical hardware you need to deploy. But everything that I just mentioned probably touches a different team member inside your organization or the management company that you're engaging with. So what are we buying? And sorry, I'm squinting because of my screen, but it's okay. When we think about what are we buying, now, how long is it gonna take? Now, as an operator, I was probably the youngest guy in the room, and I think that also qualified me because I wrote code to be the smartest guy in the room. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I knew everything, right? And that's something pretty important to think about. Just because you may have hired the smartest person in the room doesn't mean they know everything. So make sure that when you're searching to buy, you really understand the time commitment needed to make that thing successful. Again, big shout out to the Kadas team. If you're buying locks, I forget who asked, but make sure it is fire rated, because the last thing you want to do is go buy a bunch of locks that someone's making you rip out. And there's a difference between a 20-minute fire rating and a 60-minute fire rating and a 90-minute. So these are just those small details that if you're not thinking about, they can cost you a lot of money afterwards. So you're clearly starting to plan appropriately, but now who do you have engaged on this deployment? I'm gonna pick on Justin. When we started working with Justin and his team, I think the first sales conversation had 5 people in the room, and I think the second sales conversation had about 15 people in the room. They've also quickly deployed some of the fastest, most efficient tech over the last couple of years because they've had the right people in the room, because it's not just one person that's gonna make this right or wrong. We've got to understand what's happening at the site level, right? Because those are the actual users of the tech. It's a lot different than the tech guy who's sitting in corporate just saying, oh yeah, but the button's working, it's integrated, this should all be great. I see heads that are shaking because if you've done that, it's probably failed you miserably, right? So make sure you have an advocate or a champion at a site level. You gotta have a technologist in the room, because that's gonna be the person that makes sure that hopefully it's secure, hopefully it's integrated. I don't know how many people have bought tech that is not integrated with the platform. I see a lot of nods to that, right? It's the worst experience ever. Please make sure you have a marketer in the room, because that person's probably going to make this really dumb, simple, boring idea seem a lot cooler than it really is. And this is a shout out to my wife. She runs the day-to-day of our consulting firm, but make sure you have an accountant in the room. And I say that because too often the tech that you buy, if it integrates with your Yardi or your Rail page, it probably doesn't talk to it the way that the accountant needs it to, right? Especially if you get into some of that resident tech, okay? Or guys like me will sell you a bunch of hardware that tell you can amortize it over 7 years and you can't. So please make sure you have an accountant in the room. And that's a quick shout out. And I'm not saying it's me, there's tons of wonderful consultants in this space. You might need a consultant, somebody that's had a few rounds of experience to just give you some good guidance, give you some chances to avoid some pitfalls. Because you're probably gonna make it if you're operating in a small team, especially if you don't even have those names of those people identified that I've already called out. And all this tech that you're deploying and all these great suppliers who will sell you anything and tell you it's the greatest, that's me, make sure that they have the tools to make sure that your teams, the people who are engaging with not only your community but that product, have the right training tools. And something that I've realized over the years, I've deployed hundreds of thousands of units across this country, everyone's training is different. So if everyone's training is different, how can your supplier have all of the training resources that you need? Okay, so that's just a shout out to make sure that as you're thinking about this from day one, you're thinking about what your planning looks like, or excuse me, your training looks like. And maybe you're buying something cool that doesn't require a lot of training, like maybe you're buying some shades that you just push up and down. It's done, simple, okay, great, right? But if you're buying something a little bit more sophisticated, you gotta have training pretty locked down. Any operator that you talk to that's had successful pilots, they spent a lot of time behind their training. And lastly, just don't take on too much. I was meeting with a local owner-operator here, currently on a PMS tool that I think is great, but said, hey, I want to move to maybe the Yardi stack. I love the Yardi stack. I think it's extremely powerful. But that person said, we want to get it deployed in about 90 days. They had never done accounting in-house. They were using QuickBooks. And I think they wanted some other things too, but just based on everything that I said, first words out of my mouth were, don't do what you're doing, because they were really also trying to internalize property management. There's a 5-person ownership team trying to figure this out, because tools today, and I love the tools today are removing some of these really tough things that we used to do forever. I'm gonna date myself, even though I know I look like I'm 12. I come from the days where guest cards had to be written in blue ink all day long, because if you didn't, that was a fair housing case. And I'd be getting sued because I changed ink on somebody, okay? So the point is all this tech is here to simplify your life. It really is. And so it's making it a lot easier for maybe that small mom and pop, which I am, to go do this yourself. That's great, and I think you can. But just don't take on too much. The last thing you want is that serious capital investment to be a waste of money. And then that accountant that you didn't bring in the conversation is gonna have a lot of choice words for you. So I would love to talk further with anybody about what things to maybe avoid, or maybe to take a deep breath and think about before you go.
Thank you. Definitely sounds like lots of personal experience behind some of those reminders.
Yes.
We're gonna go now to the in the trenches. And Justin, I'm excited to have you up here because you're operating at scale, which is a completely different planning process than when it's not at scale. So since you're leveraging so much technology, I just put a few of the figures up. We're talking billions of dollars, hundreds of units. What's your perspective on how you manage your tech plan successfully?
I think our tech plan we're typically all new construction. So our tech plan, it has to be a fairly static and standard, just because we typically will start developing a community. By the time we get through the DD and CD plans, we construct it, we put a shovel in the ground, and then we have the first resident move in. That's probably a 3 or 4 year span, and so we just have fairly lengthy time schedules that we have, and tech moves fast. And so it's really just, we keep kind of our foundation, and our foundation is probably not the sexiest thing in the world. It's access control. But access control really just allows, anyone that is granted access into the building, around the building, and then when that access is revoked, it's removed, and they're no longer in the building. And so that goes for access control, or that goes for self-guided tours, or DoorDash, Amazon, whoever's coming into the building. We're controlling that through the access control platform. And then, having that cloud-based access control platform, to Demetrios' points and Taylor's point, it allows you to integrate into some of the different technologies, and that's your kind of core foundation of, I have this system, will this self-guided tour system work with the access control system that I have currently, or do I need to rip 160 readers out? Because that answer is going to be no, to get this solution to work. And so, that's really the focus of our foundation and our platform.
Do you have a number?
Oh yeah, I do. So I think it's 917 days was the, this is one of our projects. It's 500 homes in Northern California, 4 separate buildings, so fairly complex, but 2.5 years to build. And so, we have a 2.5-year build, plus, as I mentioned, you have the design phase. And so typically after you've budgeted for what your technology stack is going to be, and you install your technology stack, you're lagging probably 3 or 4 years behind. And so the key, at least for us, is how we stay ahead of the game, or at least neck and neck with our competitors, while we kind of keep our foundation, and we're not blowing the budget by changing technology stacks or trying to implement technology mid-construction.
I think that is one of the biggest challenges, is future-proofing, because right now it's a little bit exponential growth in certain categories as far as consumer expectations. I originally started covering smart home in 2008. We're talking beginning conversations as a tech journalist, and it's crazy to see what's still the same and what's different, but the biggest scramble is, how do you future-proof? And do you want to go into that a little bit more, and then I'll also open it up to the rest of the panel too?
Sure, yeah, so and future-proof is going to be, because our group kind of covers a little bit of everything, so we cover from the telecom side, which future-proofing is a little different there than it is from your typical smart home product. Mm-hmm. And so from a telecom perspective, I think the simplest answer there is have extra pathways. Put in more pathway than you expect. That doesn't mean that you need 15, but if you have 3 service providers, put a spare in for yourself. And then from a regular tech perspective, I think the best way to future-proof is to meet with your partners often. So then when tech is coming out, you can see who they're partnering with from an API perspective, or, and you can kind of work with that partner to say, this is my end goal where I want to be. Do you have something in your pipeline now that will end up intersecting? If not, can we inject into your roadmap, and then we end up intersecting? But I think the biggest thing with any of your partners is to have meetings with them, relay what you're looking for, hear what they're coming out with, and then when you're at events like these, just go and meet people, talk to them, see what tech they have, and where that might be useful in your portfolio.
Very wise words. Demetrios?
Heather, you said something I think it should be said again. The partners you're working with, make sure you understand if they're consumer tech or enterprise tech. Unfortunately, consumer tech will be here today and gone tomorrow, unless it's consumer tech made by Samsung or Apple, right? So understanding that difference is huge. And what's the reality? Very similar to the multifamily industry or real estate as a whole. Enterprise tech lags behind a little bit, but that's purpose built. Okay, and so Justin, just to add on to what you said there, understanding a roadmap is pretty key. If a roadmap is simply just talking about how do I feature dump, understand how does that roadmap actually fit your vision. Typically, when you're talking to a group, if the roadmap matches a vision that you have, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be aligned later on down the road. But if we're talking about a blue dot on a map today and making you popcorn tomorrow, vision's probably not aligned with the goals of your business. It happens a lot. But again, to Justin's point, meet often, but my biggest recommendation, please understand the difference between consumer tech and enterprise tech. They are not the same.
Very well said, very well said. Yeah, I guess the only thing I'd really add is just don't be in a hurry and don't buy the cool thing just because it's cool. It's taken years, literally just about a decade to finally determine how are some of these technologies actually driving value. So if a startup comes to you and says, hey, we're going to do this crazy thing for you, and they promise you the moon, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be overpromised and underdelivered on. So I'd say that, there's a reason multifamily takes a little bit longer to adopt technologies. Wait and see typically what the big guys are doing. They kind of paved the way. And it's very difficult to compete with the scale of Greystar or any of those companies at that size. So I'd say they typically move a little slow themselves because they have teams inside dedicated to just researching one thing, right? They have a director of, smart community technology. Someone that's all they do is smart communities. So you got to be pretty big to have someone dedicated to something like that. But we're years and years and years out from really some of these new technologies that are coming up first time before they're enterprise ready. And so I can't stress enough, very, very, very wise words. Enterprise tech is going to be your friend, and modularity is going to be your friend. I'd say in the smart home days, I focused very much on finding hardware that worked with all the providers instead of trying to find hardware that prime example was in the early days was Latch when they came out with their proprietary lock. It was really sexy, don't get me wrong. And at Alliance, we built Class A beautiful assets. But at the end of the day, that was not enough to justify the expenditure on adopting that technology. So ultimately, we closed the deal with a Z-Wave-based provider that had a hub and that we could deploy, sell the buildings, and then if a new ownership group came in and they wanted to rip that hub out because they like smart rent or they like whoever, right? They should be able to do that. So future-proofing, modularity is going to be key, and really just don't be in a hurry to be the first one out there to do it, because you will likely learn the hard way that...
Latch isn't a company anymore, right?
No, it's not. It's not. It's not. Exactly. So that's a prime example of what happens when you try to build something cool and then raise money on an LOI. Yeah. What can I say? But I digress.
Okay, so I want to go down the line to get granular. What's your number one personal tip for really building a great tech plan? It's in the back of your mind, you use it, and you're going to generously share it with everyone that's here.
Yeah, I think that if you don't have the resources in-house to really know, exactly what you're looking to do from a technology perspective, use consultants, to Demetrios' point, to just, use a consultant if you don't have the in-house, team to really dive into the technology. Nothing's worse than making a mistake and residents can't get into their homes, right? There's no
coming back from that experience.
No.
Oh, yeah.
So it really is just, that would be my key thing, is just be open to consultants if you don't have the experience in-house.
Good tip.
You stole that out of my... I think everybody in this room is bright enough to just ask more questions, right? It's along the same vein of finding a consultant, but what I love about the multifamily industry in general, I grew up in this industry. I was a leasing agent in college. It's how I got in the business. What I've learned after many years, people love to share their successes. They definitely love to share their failures, which is why I did a slide of a lot of failures. But they love to share their successes. So, if someone is, telling you something that's too good to be true, it doesn't mean it's too good to be true. Just go ask for some case studies. Go ask for the receipts. Tell me who is using your product, so you can get that feedback. Because as Taylor said, as Justin said, there's a lot of people out there that it's going to tell you it's great, but I don't want to hear that from you. If your product is so great, there's somebody else that also says it's great. So go ask questions to more people, and 9 times out of 10, if it's not a public CEO of a REIT, they will tell you exactly how they feel about the product. The multifamily industry is not shy of telling people how they feel about something, so go ask more questions.
Very nice, very well said. I would just say relationships is going to be your key to success in this industry. It has been. I joined this industry about a decade ago. And I can tell you, relationships that you make now will be the same relationships you lean on for the next 10 years if you don't leave this industry. Those people may leave that company that you met them at, but they will likely stay in this industry. I think most of us in this room would likely agree that we didn't get raised as children to want to be in multifamily. Like, I didn't expect to be here, right? But I'm never leaving. And I think that is very, very important to understand, that we all are in this together. We're all trying to figure this out together. And at the end of the day, if we can come together, ask questions, share our successes, share our failures, it's very difficult not to progress as an industry. But keeping, things to yourself, not being open, that very much can hurt all those around you. You know what I mean? Share those failures, share those successes. Very, very, very good advice.
We are at time, and we want to be really punctual throughout the next 3 days. So take advantage of the emails that were shared. If you still have a question, definitely email whoever you need to ask that question to. And I want to just say thanks again to Cottis for sponsoring this session, and round of applause for our panelists, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning.